Hey everybody, it's Alex here. Thank you so much for checking out the video. Uh, Today is part 3 of my series, basically where I am explaining why I am completely hitting the reset button on my personal brand and how I'm showing up online moving forward. Yeah, this is part 3, so if you haven't seen the previous parts, might be relevant to understand maybe why you want to listen to me at all, why I might have anything interesting to say. You can check that out in part 1 and 2. But today I'm really excited to talk about this idea of action leads to information. So basically, in part 1, I kind of tell my story, why I want to do this, why I feel like I've been insecure online for a long time. And even though I've had some success, I've also felt the brunt of even when you get successful online, but you don't feel like it's authentic to you, it's actually arguably worse than just failing. I'll be talking more about that in this video. And then the second video, part 2, was just this idea around that we live in a really desperate moment. There's a lot of desperate creativity and desperate creation happening online. And I made the argument that we don't have to act out of that desperation anymore because there are platforms that will support your most authentic version of you and the most creative version of you. And for me, I said that those are like YouTube and Substack. Those are where I landed. Those are the two places I want to be because I like being there the most. I feel most myself when I spend time there. I don't feel bad after spending some time on either one of those platforms because I feel like there's a lot of value on both. And so that's where I want to be. Um, but this video is kind of really deep diving into how I landed there and also hopefully helping someone else understand that everyone's journey is super different and how they have to land where they need to land and to take the direction they need to in order to find a sustainable way to create. And so I'm just going to open it up. Basically, in today's modern age, the way I talked about it in the last video around it's really desperate online, I also think it's incredibly difficult to know what you really want online. I think that when I entered, about 15 years ago, when I first started actually making real money from my creative work, from my music, things like that, and starting to learn like, oh, you could actually do this for a job one day. So much has changed since then. And I think that naive spirit that I had when I was, in my teenage years through my early 20s, like there's a lot of beauty and honestly a lot of like maybe like it's the midwit meme where it's like, you know, easy mode, make it really difficult, and then easy mode again. And you kind of like do this arc of like understanding like, oh, it's actually really simple. But when you're kind of in the middle of the journey, you overcomplicate things. And I feel like I spent my late 20s and now I'm 33 and the first couple of years of my 30s really in that middle space of like way overcomplicating what I want my creative work, my creative journey, my creative output to look like. And so I think the reason why is because it's really difficult to know what I wanted. And I think it's because we have so much access to all these different types of creators and all of them are so valid. And there are so many valid paths you could take. And there are all these best practices about how to be on short form video, how to be have a newsletter to capture your audience and make sure you don't put yourself at platform risk if platforms change. There are all these, best practices and strategies that we can kind of look at other creators and observe and say like, oh, that's probably the better thing to do or the best way to do something. But what you're kind of ignoring while observing and doing that is what you think. And this is where I think a lot of our insecurity starts to bubble up. And I think my insecurity a lot of times is I'm really good at observing the world and understanding like what works, but what I've been really bad at and what a lot of what I'm doing here on this channel, hopefully, is to say, even if it works, does it sit right with me? Does that feel real to me? Does that feel like something I feel good about doing? Um, and I've had like a few videos go like semi-viral and I've had a few things go pretty well, but the problem is I don't feel good about those because they didn't feel like me. They felt like a performative version of me doing what works versus what feels natural and good and authentic, and like I'm acting out of a secure space like this, which is why I'm making videos like this now, because this feels much more like me for the first time. And yeah, I mean, I think, sorry, I also have my notebook here. So when I'm looking down, I'm just looking at my notes that I've jotted down about all this. And basically, like, acting out of insecurity and doing all these things in this, kind of haphazard order where I'm just seeing people do things online and I'm like, oh, that seems to work for them. That seems to work for them. And I've mismatched all these things together. And it's been actually really valuable for a lot of reasons. I'll say the first one is that it's shown me what's possible, which is really good. And I think even if I'm not proud of the things I've made that have, worked online, I was able to see that I could make something that a lot of people enjoyed. And I think that in and of itself is valuable. And now I want to, really, really re engineer it to where not only do a lot of people online like something, but I love the thing that I made. And I know this probably feels super obvious, but I don't think it's as obvious as maybe it appears. And maybe you're watching this and you can look at somebody like me who's tried a lot of things online and is admitting that I wasn't being fully myself. I wasn't being fully authentic while making these things. And I think you'd be in you'd be justified to judge me for that, as somebody who is just looking for like online clout or looking for validation online. And I think that's true. Like, I don't think you're wrong about that. I think that is genuinely what I was searching for because I felt so insecure. Now, what I've realized after trying all these things, seeing success, material success, and then it not filling that hole or that void inside of me, is I'm realizing it's way less about numbers, it's way less about volume, and it's much more about me being myself online and then finding other like-minded people online to connect with. And so I would say that I've come to the place where I would much rather fail and no one give a shit about what I'm making, but I'm still being myself than to succeed while being something I'm not. And I think the internet right now is packed full. I would argue it's majority of people pretending to be something they're not to get attention, validation, love online. And I would argue it's making our experience worse. It makes the experience worse for both sides. But I really believe that we don't have to live this way anymore. We don't have to create this way anymore. And so, really quick before I jump into kind of the last part of this video where I explain maybe where I'm going and why I'm choosing to take this direction based off all the information I've learned, is that I want to just say that it's not all bad that I've learned this way. And I would argue that I have learned the hard way. These lessons I've learned the hard way of trying, iterating, figuring out what works, but then realizing it doesn't work for me. And I think that it would be really easy to just beat myself up. And I have. And it'd be really easy to just like be bummed at that experience, and maybe that I don't feel like myself, or I don't feel super authentic in the things I've done in the past, and just being disappointed and discouraged by that. But the reality is, when you learn from experience, it's much stickier. I think intuitively we all hear, you hear things about like it's way better to be yourself. Like what I said earlier, it's way better to succeed at being yourself, or it's way better to fail at being yourself than to succeed by being someone you're not. That's so easy to hear, but it's not easy to understand in your body, in your mind, in your soul when you're like really insecure and searching for validation from people online and you haven't done the inner work or the journey to understand like, oh, I'm seeking something and I'm chasing something that is never going to come from this. And so honestly, the experience I have of trying a lot of things and some of them succeeding, some of them failing, but I've learned a lot from all of it. And I wouldn't take it back because I do think that now I don't wonder. I've seen a lot of different angles of how this internet, social media, content world can work. And now I have a really firm grasp on what I want my path to look like, because I've tasted a lot of flavors of what this thing could look like, what my relationship to the internet, to creating content, to all that stuff could look like. And now I've landed, I think, on the right recipe for me. And so I just want to say that experience is much stickier as a teacher than hearing from anybody about it. And so whatever your experience has been, I would say trust your gut with that. So if you've noticed certain platforms make you feel better, certain platforms make you feel worse when you're on them, like, really follow your gut, because ultimately it's going to be your best teacher. What you've felt, what you've experienced, what you've learned through what you've done in your life, that's going to be the best way to guide your decisions on where to go with your creative work online. And so with that, I think the big place that I want to land this video is that I kind of said it in the last video, but the big point I want to make is that you don't need everyone online to like you. In fact, you don't want everyone online to like you. That would make you pretty lukewarm, vanilla, uninteresting. Totally. You don't want that. But what you do want is the right people to love you. And I think now we live in a time where, I said it in the last video, I'll say it here again, we have hit critical mass on these platforms. There are enough people on the platforms you love, that you feel like yourself on, that you feel most secure in your creativity on, to where you can now live there, create there, and enough people can find your work, love your work, and probably eventually support you making a living. And if that's not your goal, like, honestly, it's not my goal from this channel. My goal is to just share from this, because I have a full-time job, which is great, and it makes me happy. And so, but this one, for me, it's just like purely like, I want to share these thoughts and give it out. And so my one goal is depth. I want to find like-minded people. I want to find cool people like me to connect with online, creative people who are, trying to defeat insecurity in their life to build interesting things, because that's who I am deep down. And I think there's a core person there that I would connect with a lot. And I think those people live on the platforms that I'm investing in. So for my journey, I'm investing heavily in YouTube, heavily in Substack, because I believe that's where the two spaces where these people are going to be, that I want to spend time, where these, my people, my like-minded people, I'm going to find them. And so you have to do the work for yourself to understand, where are your people? Where are you going to find those folks who really connect with what you are building, what you want to, how you want to spend your time, where you want to spend your time, and then go from there. So again, all of your experience, cut all that. And the beautiful part about this is I've only landed here because of all the other things that I've done wrong to land in this place, where now I feel extremely more confident than I've ever felt, because I'm operating out of security in where I'm going to spend my time online because of my experience. And so all of that action I took, it created all this information, all this data that now I get to use and learn from and play with and understand and make fit into the puzzle piece of my life and how my creative work is going to show up online. And so I just want to say that your experience and all the information that you've generated by taking action, that's what adds up into eventually pushing you in the right direction. Some people get lucky. They start in the right place. They, take off right away doing stuff that they're just super passionate about. But I don't think that's everyone's journey, and I think that's okay. I think a lot of us are kind of searching online to figure out, where do I fit? How do I fit? And what can I offer the world that's both meaningful to other people, but feels true to myself? And that's where I've landed with this work. And so that's where I'll wrap it up, is that your action creates information. So all the things you've done up until this point, look at it, examine it, understand what feels good about it, what feels bad about it, and then start to connect the dots, start to put the puzzle piece together, understand, how do you want to show up online knowing that information, and then start making it happen. And then ruthlessly delete the other stuff that doesn't make you feel that way, that doesn't make you feel good. For me, I really dislike how I feel after spending time on Instagram or on Twitter, and I've basically ruthlessly deleted those from my life now. Like, I don't spend time there because they don't feel good. Am I leaving opportunity on the table because I could be getting audience on those platforms? For sure. But that's a cost I'm willing to take on because I don't feel like that's a long-term solution for me. That would be me, again, doing something I'm not to be something I'm not for people who I don't really care about connecting with. And so for me, it's way more valuable and feels way closer to the soul and who I am to spend time in these spaces that do add value to my life, that I feel secure in. And so that's where I'm going to wrap up. I'll give you a teaser for the fourth part of the series, which you've heard me say it a bunch of times, this idea of insecurity versus security. And I believe that people, creative people specifically, are in a constant battle of feeling insecure and having to defeat that feeling over and over and over and over again in our life. And the next video is going to explain essentially why I think that defeating insecurity is my mission online. That's both my mission in my work here, but that's my mission outside of just these videos. It's my mission in my personal life for myself. It's my mission in my relationships with my friends, my family, and it's my mission in my work, how my vocation, how I make money in my life, and how I want to make money through my life, and what I want to leave behind when I'm no longer here. And so, this idea of defeating insecurity is my personal mission, and I'm really passionate about it. And so, I will dive deeper into that in the next video, which is part 4. So, again, thank you so much for hanging out with me. If you dig these videos, it would mean a lot if you subscribe to the YouTube channel. You could also join me on Substack. Link is below. And yeah, I'm really excited for what's happening here on the channel. I'm really excited for connecting with really interesting, cool, creative people. And yeah, please connect with me wherever you can, wherever you choose to do that. I'll be on YouTube. I'll be on Substack. So join me there. Thank you so much for watching. See you soon.